Hello everyone and welcome to another bins video, except instead of going through the clothes this time, I'm going to show you the books. I'm so excited to finally be able to show you guys this. You can see here that I have picked the emptiest bin to go through. This is actually a journal that has not been written in. It's a vintage journal, a little ship on there. I do pick up blank journals whenever I find them, especially when they're in good condition, like that's a new condition, because of the fact that they sell for me. Everybody is looking for a blank piece of paper, and you can see here that I'm organizing as I'm going through. What this does is it ensures that I'm not missing anything at the bottom. I have found, books that have sold for over $50 at the bottom of these bins, like that fall in those little crevices. I have also found gift cards at the bottom of the bins as well. So these are some John Jakes books. I found a bunch of vintage John Jakes books, and I'm setting them over into the side. Whenever I'm not sure about something, I will pick it up and I will put it in the top of the cart. That is a Lord of the Rings book. Unfortunately, I did find the other two books, but they were absolutely trashed. So I have one of the three Lord of the Rings books now in that edition. And I know some people would be like, why in the world are you organizing the books? Well, I've talked about before that sustainability is one of the things that I like the most about reselling. And if I organize the books like this so everybody can see the spine, then hopefully that means more books will get sold. Because as I've talked about before, the books here, if they don't sell, they go in the landfill. That is where they go. So if I can give a book another chance at selling, I'm going to give it to it. Also, as I mentioned, it makes sure that I don't miss anything, because I have found like Amazon gift cards at the bottom that still had money on them. I have found, expensive books at the bottom that like fell in the crevices. So not only is it to make sure that more stuff gets sold, it's also, to make sure that I don't miss anything. This is a book I picked up. It just looked interesting, and I did look it up, and they do sell for around like $10 to $15. So I do pick it up. Now, when I'm going through the books, I actually look at a lot of things. So vintage cookbooks can sell well. I decided not to look that one up because it was specifically for a wok. I found actually a couple of wok cookbooks in here, so I'm guessing somebody got a wok and then decided to get every single cookbook that was available in the 70s for that, which again, those could have sold. But what I'm looking for here in this bin is stuff that I personally find interesting. I should have actually picked this up. I found this one, which is a 70s edition of like the music of the Disney movie. I also found one for Cinderella, but I found that in like 3 bins over. And by the time I found that one, I couldn't find this one. So maybe somebody else picked that up, because I do go through every single bin. So I will do this looking through every single book. I touch every single book in every single one of these bins, and I organize every single bin. And it normally takes me 3 hours to do all 4 bins. There's never more than 4 bins. Sometimes there are less, but there are never more than 4 bins. And whenever I am done with the bins, it's normally, because I get here around 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning. It opens at 9. And then about 30 minutes to an hour after I'm done, all these book bins go in the back, because I'm normally the last one to touch them. So this is a Men's Health, the best of Men's Health. It's a little folio sleeve. I found one of the books, so I put the book in there, and I put that in my top. So I was hoping that I could find the rest of the Twilight books in the bin, because normally if I can find one, I can find more than one, but I did only find one in good enough condition, so it did eventually go back into the bins. So I'm going to put that over there. So if you see me throw anything aside, that's me making space so I can, again, line these up so the spines are visible. So if you see me just throwing the books over there, I will get to it in a minute. But that's what I do. I pull everything up so I can see the spine, and so everybody else can see the spine. And then when I get a nice thick stack, I will put it there and continue to go through and make space. And normally by the end of this, every single book is face up like this. So when I'm here in the bins digging through books, I'm looking for antique books, so books older than 100 years old. Those are considered truly antique. Antiquarian books can be literally anything over 50 years old. especially vintage paperbacks, can be considered antiquarian. To be honest, most books are considered antiquarian if they don't have a barcode on them. So if you did not know, barcodes were mandated on all items made available to sell to the general public. So if it was like a book club, it didn't need to have a barcode on it. If it was, a private sale or, a closed club or like a giveaway, it didn't need to have a barcode on it. But all barcodes were mandated, UPC barcodes in the States in 1978. So what I'm looking for is books that fit before that year. So from roughly 1978 to about 1930, because they're not going to have barcodes on them and they're going to be too old for FBA sellers, because most FBA sellers, when they're going through the bins here at the Goodwill outlet, they are just scanning. They're scanning the barcodes in the back. So if it's too old and it doesn't have a barcode, then they just throw it. And what's interesting, though, so this one is an Agatha Christie. This is actually from 1985. And this would have had a barcode on it, but it would have been a saran wrap. So that was a special edition. So it would have had a saran film over it with the barcode sticker on it. And that is why it doesn't have a barcode on it now, is because, it's a used book now. But that one was worth picking up for sure. So I also double check any leather-bound books. So Bibles, special edition of, regular books, like the Barnes & Noble special edition. Easton Press is a really good book to look out for. I do have a video on my channel talking about how to make money selling books on eBay versus selling them on Amazon, which would be FBA sellers. But the FBA sellers even miss out on stuff, because what they'll do is they'll scan a book and see that it's not worth it, quote unquote worth it, and then just pass on it. And I've literally found a book in a bin that an FBA seller threw back that was worth over $70, because when you scan it via FBA, it came up as a regular edition of that book. However, it was a special print of that book. So it had a different dust jacket. It had the same ISBN number, it had the same UPC barcode, but it was a limited dust jacket print of that book. And so because it was a limited edition dust jacket, that book was worth $70 to $100. Now, it is a book that I love, so I kept it, but there you go. So that's one of those books that I just put over there that did not have a barcode. There's another one of those men's health books, so I threw it over there. So that way, when I got back to that side of the bin, I could put that together. So even the Amazon FBA sellers, if it has a barcode, will still miss out on valuable books because they don't have the brand knowledge. They're literally just relying on scanning the books and for the barcode to tell them if it's worth it or not. But this is just like clothing reselling, except instead of, brand knowledge where it's specific, like clothing wear brands or fashion houses or even materials. So, a leather jacket is probably still going to be valuable, or, if it's 100% linen or wool and you don't necessarily know the brand, you know that the fabric is going to be worth it. It's the same with books. You build up publisher knowledge. So as I mentioned just a little bit of it, like Easton Press is a valuable leather edition. They do limited leather editions of books. So Easton Press, Cambridge Press, Oxford Press, Yale University Press, like any of the college, like the big college presses, like Harvard University presses, those are going to be valuable. Specific genres will be valuable as well. Like I've talked about before, I do buy and sell religious books as well. So I've bought and sold multiple Bibles. I've even bought and sold the Quran. I have a lot of specialist knowledge in genre literature. So that would be horror, science fiction, and fantasy. And that is because I do have a book channel as well, which is where I normally put all this book content, like my hauls and talking about what I'm reading and the books that I've read. I do have a separate channel for that, but you guys said you'd be interested in seeing me dig through the books. And so that's how I normally sell and have a lot of genre knowledge and sell a lot of the genre books, is because of the fact that I do have a very specific niche interest. So this is me going around to the other side of the bin so I can start organizing the other side, since I have finished that one side. So just like with clothing brands, I am looking for specific authors. So if I was science fiction, I'd be looking for the Strugatsky brothers, for Robert Silverberg. I'd be looking for Robert Heinlein, Jack Vance, Jack Williamson, Isaac Asimov. All the high grandmaster names in those genres. If I'm looking for fantasy, it'd be like J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. I'd be looking for Rothfuss, Patrick Rothfuss. I'd be looking for, YA. I know a lot of YA authors as well that I enjoy, like Suzanne Collins, who wrote the Hunger Games series, Stephanie Meyer, who wrote the Twilight series, J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, which everyone knew, PC and Kristen Cast. You have just so many authors, Leah Bardot, which I think I find at some point in this bin and get really excited about. But I think that's going to be a little bit later. And it's after a while of doing this, you just build up, like I said, a catalog of authors and a catalog of publishers that you are going to know is going to be valuable. And then you just get a feel. Like when you come across something at the thrift and you find this piece of clothing, you're like, oh my God, I don't know this brand, I don't have good cell service, but I have a feeling that this is worth it because you've built up that tactile knowledge, that construction knowledge. You may have just not even realized it. It's just through osmosis and doing something for a really long time. I will just come across a book and feel like, I think this is valuable. I'm going to put this up top and look it up later and see if I'm right or not. And, about 75% of the time I'm correct, where it's like, it was a good reason I set it aside. I'm super glad I did that. So this is me trying to figure out what kind of book this is. There were a lot of racial books in here, like the psychology of and the history of racial division in the Americas at this time. Most of the time when you come to the bins and they have a substantial book section, which I'm fortunate that we do, there was 3-month period at the end of last year where there were no books, and all of us here were very sad about that, that particularly like the books here. But what you'll notice is that what happens is that a whole bunch of books will get donated from the same person, and so you'll find a whole lot of books that have a similar theme, which can both be a great thing or a bad thing. So there are some of the books from this particular individual that were really substantial. So I found a rare piece of ephemera that was talking about Malcolm X from the time period that, is very rare, and it was worth about $60 in this pile. I'm not sure if it's this specific bin, but that is one of the pieces that I did find. And again, it was because there was a big collection of talking about race and politics in the Americas, in the, Jim Crow era and beyond that. But I also have a degree in history, so there's me knowing that particular time period, because it was a period of upheaval and because there were a lot of leaders during that time period that met very violent and tragic ends, that things from that time period about those individuals are probably going to be valuable. So there's that as well. So I was looking through all those books to see if that would be something I needed to pick up or not. But sometimes you'll get a whole bunch of books in here. There you have one Clive Cussler fan, so you get pretty much all of his discography, or his bibliography, which is the correct word instead of discography. Discography is for musicians, not for authors. Excuse me. For me too. So the authors that are very prolific, where they're still coming out with books like Clive Cussler or James Patterson or Dean Koontz, those ones that are really big in the mystery, thriller, suspense category, and the other authors that are really big in the romance section as well, like Karen Kingsbury or Nicholas Sparks. They're so prolific, and they produce so many books, and their publishers publish so many of their books that they're ubiquitous here at the bins. And so unless you get like a first edition, like an older first edition, so an older one of their works that's a first edition, or manage to come across a signed edition, even if a hardcover here is going to be 50 cents or 25 cents, unless you get a significant collection of theirs from here and are willing to wait until a buyer wants to buy all of them, they're not really worth picking up here, which is sad because then those books get thrown away. But so this is T.A. Barron is Learning Italian. This did not have all the CDs in it. And also some of these language programs can sell well, but some of them also will zero you. So don't sell those. But I was double checking to see because I would have gotten dinged on eBay, but I don't know. Maybe I could have sold it somewhere else. We'll see. But this is just me going through again, making sure that I'm not missing out on anything. Some self-help books can be doing well, like the self-help books that are like open up your third eye from the 60s and 70s, like the open up your psychic power. Cyclomancy is one I always keep a lookout for. I sold that book for $250 a couple years ago. That was an amazing book. So I always look out for that one. But there are several older books as well. So this is the Hardy Boys, but this is a 70s edition Hardy Boys. So I left that behind. The Hardy Boys that I am looking for are either the original ones that came out in the 30s, the 20s and 30s, or the ones that came out in the 40s and 50s, and those ones have a blue text block at the top. So whenever you're looking at a book, you have the cover, the front cover, and the back cover. Now, all of the pages between the front cover and the back cover make up the book, right? Well, all of those pages, most books, it's going to be white. But on the older copies, older books, the text block, instead of it being, white pages, they will be blue or purple or red or teal. And so the older text blocks for the vintage Hardy Boys are blue. So if I find one with a blue top text block, those are the ones I pick up. And I do think I end up finding a couple in here because those ones will still sell for, $10 or so. Some of the rarer ones will go for more. And the reason being is that in the 70s and even later now, because they're still printing the Hardy Boys, they're still printing Nancy Drew books, they have updated the stories for a modern audience. So it's not the original story. Like there's some violence and there's some sexism apparent in those books for the earlier versions. So people want the original story. They don't want the modern story. And then there's some people that only want the modern story. They don't want the outdated text. But if they don't want the outdated text, they'll just buy a new book. They won't buy, the 1970s prints unless they have some kind of nostalgia towards it because it was the one that they had. I also pick up kids' books as well here. I've talked about before how vintage children's books, from the 40s, 50s, and 60s can be valuable because of the fact that most of them didn't make it. Kids are hard on their stuff. They will chew on them. They will color on them. They will write in them. They will throw them around. They will take them outside and drop them in the mud. So truly vintage children's books sometimes don't make it. And then a lot of people have nostalgia and they want to read their favorite children's books to their kids when they have them. And maybe it's not in print anymore. I know my favorite children's book, The Tale of the Mandarin Duck, hasn't been in print for like multiple decades at this point. But I have an original copy of it, and I would absolutely buy that book again if I could find another copy of it. I mean, I might not be fortunate enough to ever have kids, but I have a lot of nostalgia and love towards that book, and I know that it's valuable because it is out of print, and I will pick it up if I ever found it again. But like I said, it's a pretty rare book, so the likelihood of me finding it here at the Goodwill outlet in Hampton is very slim, but I do always look out for that as well. This is also one of my favorite books, but I actually already have this. The Puppy Who Wanted a Boy. I remember that being on Reading Rainbow, and the daycare I went to had a copy of it, and now I have a copy of it that I actually rescued from the bins. And I think I also rescued that copy from the bins because it's a really cute story. So I will pick up those as well. Like I'm definitely one of those people that do nostalgia grabs as well. The Disney book club books I will pick up from like the 70s and 80s. because those were books that, I had when I was little, and also my daycare had when I was little, because our daycare had a lot of books donated to them from parents or grandparents or people who are like, oh, there's a daycare, they need kids books, I'm going to give the old kids books. So like I also grew up in the South, so I had some very questionable books as well as children's books that I was introduced to that I didn't know were questionable until I became an adult, like Briar Rabbit. I'm not going to say the rest of the name of that book, but those of you that know. Here is that other book. You can see it is falling apart. The pages are literally falling apart, and it has been eaten, so that one didn't come with me. But that's what I was talking about. I did find the other Lord of the Rings books that were in that set. They were just not in a good condition. I don't know why that last book... Well, actually, I do know. So normally the last book in the series is going to be the book that's in the best shape because it's the one that got the least read. Normally the first books in the series are the ones that fall apart or normally are in pieces by the time they get to the bins because of the fact that they're the ones that people read and reread again. It's very rare that a sequel is better than the original in books, but it is possible. There have been some. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there have been some. That's not true. So I was talking about Libba Bray. Libba Bray is a YA novelist that I really love. She has a trilogy called A Great and Terrible Beauty. The whole trilogy is gorgeous and sad. And if you find A Great and Terrible Beauty out in the wild, I highly recommend it. It is a romance YA. It's like a fantasy romance YA where the main character is magic. I wouldn't really call it a dark romance, but it is a romance, and it's great, and I love it. Also, the title of the book is amazing, like a Dark and Terrible Beauty. So this is a Star Trek book. I actually just sold that exact Star Trek book, but in hardcover, out of Whatnot recently. But that one, unfortunately, was rat-eaten and also falling apart, so that one left. So this is one of the books I picked up for nostalgia. It is The Three Billy Goats Gruff. It's one of the miniature golden books. I picked that up because it was in good condition, and I remember that being one of the books that we had at daycare. So sometimes I'll pick stuff up because it's super cheap. Because, as I've mentioned, the paperbacks are 25 cents here a piece, and the hardcovers are 50 cents a piece. So it's not by the weight here, which is great. And also why my cart is normally half full of books is because it's really hard, if you know what you're doing, not to make money from books at the bins, at least at these prices. I know there are some bins where it's like they make you pay by weight, and there are some that make you pay by page, which I think is like so much work and unnecessary. So this is me running back and forth to fill space. So to make sure that we're all not dizzy, I am going to now pass you on to Hall Bob, and she is going to go through the hall with you. And also that Joy of Cooking book that did get sold because somebody could see it and it wasn't in the bottom of the pile anymore. So again, I do this because it helps me, and it also makes sure that more of these books don't end up in the landfill. So thanks for watching, and I will give you to other Bob now, and she'll show you what I picked up. Welcome to the hall, y'all. So I'm going to talk quite a bit about books, so hopefully you're here for that. If not, bye. But first I'm going to show you the books that are going to go on eBay and the books I'm keeping, and then I will show you the books that will be available for sale on Whatnot first. And then, of course, if they don't sell on Whatnot, they will then go on to eBay. So I'm going to show you probably the best find of the day. This is a pamphlet. I mentioned this in the shopping portion, but I didn't find it in that bin. But this is a pamphlet, Myths About Malcolm X. This was published originally in the International Socialist Review in the 60s, 1967. And then this has been reprinted. This is the fourth printing from 1971. It is speeches about Malcolm X, and this is pretty rare. So I saw two listed in the UK for $68 plus, international shipping. So I'm gonna put this up for $50 and see what happens. But yeah, this is what I was talking about. Anything about, Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr. from the time period, like pamphlets from that time period, can be very valuable if you can find, mostly because it's ephemera. Ephemera, the whole point of ephemera was to be a moment in time, to be temporary, something that was for that time period and then to be discarded once it no longer had purpose. So this kind of stuff can be valuable. I also picked up An Exorcist Tells His Story. This is from Friar Gabriel Amaranth, talking about his time as an exorcist. And I picked this up to sell because these were going for roughly $10 to $15. And then also, if it takes a while to sell, probably read it. It is in like new condition though, so maybe not. It just needed to have the sticker removed off the back of it. I do have a little heat gun, just right here. I use to take the stickers off of stuff. It works 90% of the time. I also pick up vintage Goosebumps books whenever I find them. I currently have a listing up from the 90s, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull that out and take another photograph with this one added to it and just add to that listing. That's normally what I do there. I also picked up 2 quilting books. I have had really good luck lately picking up vintage quilts from the bins and repairing them and then reselling them. So I've picked up 2 quilt books. I might sell these, but it's also so that way I can learn pattern names as well. And also, if you can sell a lot of these quilting books that haven't been cut out, because a lot of these do have quilt patterns in them to cut out, you can sell them as a lot. So lots are a great thing to sell on eBay. Speaking of, I'm very tempted to keep these because I love Fraggle Rock. I was so excited when I realized that it's on Disney Plus, you can rewatch it. Fraggle Rock came out in 1983, and this is a set of the weekly reader books, and they're all Fraggle Rock. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 of them. A lot of these books, not a lot. If you get a bunch of these books and sell them in a lot, they can be valuable. Definitely more than the, less than $5 I paid for these. So, I'm trying to turn $5 into $20, $25 is what the intention is if I am allowing myself to part with these, because again, I have a lot of nostalgia towards Fraggle Rock. I've talked about this in the video I mentioned about books, how to be successful selling books on eBay versus Amazon FBA. One of the things I talked about is advanced readers editions or advanced readers copies or uncorrected proofs. So this is an advanced reader edition of Where the Light Fell by Philip Yancey. So these are given to magazines, newspapers, booktubers, bloggers to read the book before it comes out. So that way there are reviews available for people to read or watch when the book is released. It's kind of like to get hype over it. And a lot of these, there may be like small errors in them, but people collect these or prefer these because sometimes some stuff gets taken out at the very last minute that people want to stay in. So I picked that up to sell. This is one of those books I talked about. I saw these were selling for like $10. This is The Colonizer and the Colonized by Albert Mimin. This is from the 60s, I believe, 1969. Nice. So I will put this up for sale as well. I already talked about that. And then this I could not find on eBay at all. This is Where's Wendy? It's kind of like Where's Waldo, except it is kind of a Halloween edition where this little girl, where you gotta find her and all of these, I Spy things. This is from 1992. It gives you like all things to check off to look at. And when I can't find something on eBay, I will then look up it on Amazon FBA, and the Amazon FBA for these is like $40. So I'll probably list this at $25 on eBay and see what happens, see if it sells quick or not. I just thought that was kind of cool. These are the 2 things I'm keeping. I talked about in the video, the Three Billy Gets Gruff in this little mini golden book. I just remember this when I was a kid. Now I could sell this because it is in pristine condition. It hasn't been written on or colored on. It has the original Woolworth A sticker for 79 cents. Imagine being able to buy a children's book brand new for 79 cents. That would be amazing. This same book now probably would be like $5 to $6, if not more. I don't know. It's been a while since I've looked at the Little Golden Books. I remember in the early 2000s, the Little Golden Books were like $4, but I think they've gone up since then. But I picked this up because I thought nostalgia. And then this is the book I was talking about, the Leah Bardugo. I have almost all of her books, except she's released a bunch of new ones the last 5 years that I haven't picked up. She is a YA author. Well, she does YA and regular adult fiction. And I keep passing by this book at Second and Charles, which is the secondhand bookstore around here, and I just can't talk myself into spending, well, how much is this? $30 on a book. So, and in the used condition, I think it was like $15, which is still decent because it's half off. But I'd much rather pay 50 cents for it. So I got really excited when I found this book. So this is going to go on the shelf with the rest of them, because I actually have all of Leah Bardugo's books here at the boys' house, because he got a big giant barrister bookcase and told me I'm allowed to fill it. And so I did very quickly, because I have a lot of books, because I love books, as you guys can see. All right. So then everything else that I'm going to show you will be available for sale on Whatnot. It'll be $2 a book. And I'll talk about a little bit why I picked them up, and also like what I would expect to get on eBay for them after the Whatnot sale if they don't sell on Whatnot. But I always put up genre books first on Whatnot. But let me just go through it. So this is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I have this in hardcover. I bought it, when it came out new. Marcus Zusak is an Australian author, and yeah, he's a great writer. He actually hasn't written that many books. He's written a total of 6 books. There's a trilogy. He's written 3 regular standalone novels, and he's written a trilogy, and that's it. But he has been writing since the 90s, and that's all he's released. This is The Book Thief. Really sad book, really good book. It is about Nazi Germany in the 30s, and about a family that takes in an individual and how that plays out. But really beautiful book. I pick this up whenever I find it because I think it's a great work. I also, when I'm at the bins, will pick up modern books that, if it doesn't sell on Whatnot, I know will the Second and Charles that I just mentioned will take it and will pay me more than what I paid for at the bins. So if it doesn't sell on Whatnot, I have another avenue with which I can resell the books, recoup my costs, and then like buy other books. So that is what most of these are books that, if they don't sell on Whatnot, I will probably either hold on to them until I have a bunch of books by the same author, and or books that I will just resell to Second and Charles after, if it doesn't sell on Whatnot. This is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. So this is a modern like mystery book, but there is that. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood is a very popular romance writer. She does a lot of these style of books. Like, it's pretty easy to tell her work because it all has this stylization, like this cartoony style cover. But this book is super popular. It's a contemporary romance, and so I know that if it doesn't sell on Whatnot, it absolutely will sell to Second and Charles. Same thing with Madeline Wickman. She wrote the Shopaholic series as Sophia Kinsella. I mean, it's on the title here, but Sophia Kinsella wrote the Shopaholic series, but some of these romance authors will have, well, some authors in general will have multiple pseudonyms with which they write under. I don't know why they decide to do that, but this is Cocktails for Three, so it's another romance novel. So there is that one. This is Crazy Rich Asians, which is actually a trilogy, if you did not know. It's also a movie. This is by Kevin Kwan. I've only found this one. I've not found the other two, but again, this is a popular book because it had a very popular movie, which, if you haven't seen it, pretty decent movie. So there is that. And then this is Penelope Fitzgerald. She is a British writer, wrote a lot of fiction. She passed away in the year 2000. This is The Beginning of Spring, so kind of like a romance novel. It's a romance novel. The Hate You Give is a YA novel, also a movie, really popular book, really good book. I also already have a copy of that. This is Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Brent. I also have this in hardcover already. I've read this book before. It is a murder mystery about a southern town. Really, really good. It is actually nonfiction. It's a murder mystery nonfiction book, and it is very excellent. If you've read In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, it's a similar vein, just riveting read, really riveting. If you don't have time to read a book like this, the Audible version of the book is also really well done. So I also pick up classic hardcovers when I'm out at the bins because they will sell. So that is all the modern fiction that I know Second and Charles would take if it doesn't sell on Whatnot. And here is all of the hardcovers vintage fiction that would definitely sell on eBay if it doesn't sell on Whatnot. This is Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, in hardcover. Now this would have had a dust jacket, but it currently does not. But it is a really nice hardcover for a classic by Jules Verne, who is a popular writer from the Victorian era. So there is that. He's most famous for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Around the World in 80 Days, which you will see in a little bit. Speaking of classics, we have Anna Sewell's Black Beauty in this beautiful leather-bound hardcover edition. Again, a book that I know would definitely sell on eBay. Both of these books I would sell for like $10 for shipping. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Now this is illustrated by Arthur Rackham. Popular, oh look, and it's got a bookmark in it. I have like a little pile of bookmarks that I have found in these vintage books over there. It's like this thick now. But this is illustrated by Arthur Rackham. You see little illustrations, like little doodles all around here. Christmas Carol is a classic. This is Alfred Hitchcock's Tales to Send Chills Down Your Spine, but I don't know if this actually has an if it has a Hitchcock story in it. It is a short story collection. It has a bunch of different mystery and horror writers in here, but they're all from the 50s and 60s. So 50s, 60s, and some 70s. A short story horror collection. I don't know who most of these people are, but I picked that up. This is a copy of The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck, which The Good Earth was on Oprah's book club, one of the first books from Oprah's book club. This is from 1945, so this was published during World War II, and it originally, The Good Earth was originally published in 1931. I have read this book. It is heartbreakingly sad of that time period, sorry. I'm just thinking about it, but it does still have its original dust jacket, so that is why I picked that up. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It's got the deckled edges, which by the way, that's what this is called. So when it's a rough cut edge, it's called a deckled edge. This is by the Readers League of America, and I think this is antique. Or maybe it's from the 30s. Or not. I have no idea. This doesn't tell me when it's from. So, Pride and Prejudice. Now the reason why I picked this up is because I normally pick up any antiquarian looking classics because people just have that as shelf candy, as decor. They're not ever actually going to read it. They just want it to look nice in their background for their Zoom meeting. So there's that. I pick these up whenever I find them. The Scribner Library editions of classics by F. Scott Fitzgerald I have sold. Not this exact one. This is the first time I've found Tender is the Night. I am also considering keeping this one. But this is F. Scott Fitzgerald, who's most well known for The Great Gatsby. And this is the Scribner's Son edition from the 50s. I think this is from this is from 1962. But I have bought and sold these Scribner editions, these blank blue classic editions, for around $10 to $15, and they sell very quickly for me. It doesn't really matter the work. This is a porcupine named Fluffy. Just like the Three Billy Goats Gruff, this is one of those books that I picked up because I have nostalgia towards it and I didn't want it to end up thrown away. If it doesn't sell and whatnot, I will keep it. I just remember loving this book when I was a kid. This is one of the ones that was at my daycare. It's from 1986. I just think it's cute. And then I tried to describe what I was talking about with the Hardy Boys and the Nancy Drew novels. I did find one. So this is Mystery of the Whale Tattoo, number 47 for the Hardy Boys. And when I'm talking about the text block, all right, so we have the cover, front cover, back cover, spine. This is the text block. And you can see down here, it's a white text block, blue top. It has a dark blue text block top. These are the ones I'm looking for in these little permabound hardcover editions. That is what I'm looking for because these ones are normally from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So this one is from 1968, and this is what I was talking about. So there are more modern versions of these books. They'll have a white text block all the way around. I am looking for the one with the blue tops, or the older ones which are actually gray. They're going to be gray all the way around. They're not going to have this picture on the front. They're going to be gray all the way around and have like two little dudes on the front. That's normally what I find because the dust jackets are long gone, because the dust jackets at that point are closing in on 100 years old. So this is what I was trying to describe, the blue top text block. This is the text block. Speaking of text blocks, now we're going to go into the paperbacks, and this is a vintage edition of Sal Bellows' Dangly Man. But this has a red text block. It is a red cover, red spine, but also has a red text block. It is red all the way around. So, most well known for Herzog. This is a first printing from 1965. Again, I will pick up vintage classics whenever I find them because they do sell well for me. So this is a first print, so this is pretty nice. I picked that up. T.S. Eliot is most well known for his poetry. This is The Confidential Clerk, which is one of his plays, and a vintage copy. I think this is from the 60s. Am I correct? No, I am not correct. This is from 1954. So a classic, I will pick that up. This is a modern classic. So it is a modern reprinting of a classic book. This is My Antonia by Willa Cather. And what'll happen is that because these, what I will do is I will collect these, and when I get a set, I will sell it as a lot. So like if I found a bunch of similar books, if I find similar vintage romance novels that are considered classics, I will put it in a lot together because I don't think Willa Cather has a whole lot of books that are still in print now. But that is what I mean when I say I'll make a lot. This is Inherent the Wind, which is another play. So what I could do is take the T.S. Eliot, I'll take Inherit the Wind, and I would take like Death of a Salesman. So I could take Inherit the Wind, Death of a Salesman, and The Confidential Clerk and put it as a vintage play lot. So lots that make sense. Another classic, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. If you want to be depressed, this would be a great one to read. The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I find Henry James actually kind of frequently, him and Joyce James, I will find. So I could create a lot of Henry James classics because Henry James was quite prolific. So I would do that. Speaking of D.H. Lawrence, another considered classic writer, I bought and sold many D.H. Lawrence lots, and that's what I would do with this. This is a copy from, I think, the 60s. You can tell there's a lot of 60s in here. Also, no, still 1954. So 50s and 60s. What I like to do, too, is if I find a bunch of vintage ones, I will lot it as that decade, so 60s D.H. Lawrence books or whatever, because then those can be used for as props in shows, which happens occasionally. Here is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. which is his most well-known book. We have Night by Elizaveta, which is another hard to read. So another thing that I will require reading lots. So books that you would normally read while you're in school, Night by Elizaveta is one of those books. So selling this by itself, not really worth it. But if I put this with a bunch of other books that you would normally have to read in school, that would sell as a lot because there are plenty of people that homeschool their children. Speaking of James Joyce, this is a portrait of the artist as a young man, one of James Joyce's most classic works, well-known classic works. So there is that one. We have Hamlet by Shakespeare, so I will lot up some of Shakespeare's vintage plays as well. I think, am I correct? Nope, 1963. All right, so if I think it's from the 50s, it's from the 60s, and if I think it's from the 60s, it's from the 50s. We have The Bridge Over the River Kwai by Pegboard. This is a vintage copy. This one I think is from the 60s. Watch me be wrong after I just said that. Nope, I was right this time, 1963. Goodbye, Mr. Chips by James Hamilton. A really short, supposed to be like a funny, like heartwarming tale of a schoolmaster. I've not read this one. 1968. The House of the Seven Gables by Nathaniel Hawthorne. This is probably from the 50s. Nope, 1964. It's another classic. We have a couple of Steinbecks. I will also lot Steinbeck together. Steinbeck is one of my favorite American classic authors. This is The Pearl, which is a romance novel set in the 30s. One of his, this is the winner of the Nobel Prize for Steinbeck. The Winter of Our Discontent. I'm letting this one move on. This was actually in my own collection because I found a vintage hardcover of that. This is from the 1950s. I have not seen this before. I think this is from the 50s. I think it's from this is in, I think this is 50s? 57? I think this is 1957. Henry James. So, where is it? Where was Henry James at? There it is. So like, this is Henry James, this is Henry James. I would not put these two in a lot together, despite their both being Henry James, because this is a really slim, very vintage copy, so I would probably sell this one by itself and try to find more modern versions to sell here. But there's that. Charles Dickens, I'll make Charles Dickens lots. This is another copy of The Christmas Carol, but this is a vintage paperback. It's a watermill classic. This is from 1980. Complete and unabridged. We have The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgins Burnett. I love this book. This one's probably also from the 80s because it's also watermill. 1987. Johnny Tremain. This is a very vintage copy. It has the blue text block. Very vintage Dell floppy paperback. 1972. This is A Room with a View by Ian Forster. Originally written in the turn of the 1900s, so I think this was written in 1909. I'm not 100% sure. 1908. But this is a 1995 copy. Now you might say, hey, this doesn't have a barcode, even though this was published in 1995, or this edition was published in 1995, where's the barcode? That's because this is a Book of the Month Club edition. So because it wasn't made available for sale to the general public, that's why it doesn't have a barcode. So, pick this up. All right, I will also pick up manga whenever I find it. This is Happy Sugar Life #1. I do know that there is one guy who comes in and that's all he wants, is he's looking for manga. I normally have already filled my cart with it by the time he gets it. I do give him some, but if I find it, it's mine. I've also talked about how I have blank journals. So I have the hardcover ship one here, made in the USA from Curzon's, and then this is a 120-page dark floral one with a little dangly. So some blanks there. And I thought this was really cool. So here's a bunch of very vintage, very floppy kids books. Well, some of them are kids books, some of them are just vintage books. This is Tunnel Through Time by Lester Del Rey. This is a scholastic version, so this would be like a juvenile science fiction book. Really cool cover there. The Wicked, Wicked Ladies in the Haunted House by Mary Chase. So these are all from the 70s, but I just think they're really cool. Here's Heidi. These are all 70s scholastics. They do have tape on them. Somebody taped the corners because I think these were in somebody's classroom. Henry and the Paper Route. I think this is the one. It's from 1972. I could not believe I found this. So this is an original first print, scholastic first print of Beezus and Ramona. And this is from 1955. So this one I could sell on eBay. And then the first Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. Another one from the 70s. And all these have names written in them, which is, you just kind of get used to. And then we have our genre books. This is Michael Crichton, The Terminal Man. This is a very vintage copy of Sherlock Holmes. It does look like it has some delamination happening here, but I'm trying to get to it. This is a pocket book. A lot of these went in people's back pockets and then got like torn to shreds. These pocket editions were popular in the 40s and 50s. This one is 1941. So a 19 pocket edition of Sherlock Holmes. Really cool. Speaking of, here's a Dell one with the blue text box. So this is Agatha Christie's 13 Dinners. 13 at Dinner. I think this one's also probably from the 40s. I'm trying to be real gentle with this. 1965, first printing from 1965. Very cool. We have a short story collection by Jack Williamson. Nonstop to Mars, With Folded Hands, The Happiest Creature, Gibbery, and The Highest Dive are the 5 stories in here. I think this is from the 70s, 1978. The House of Dyes Dreer by Virginia Hamilton. Probably also from the 70s. 1970. 1973. Kurt Vonnegut Jr. Wampeters, Foma, and Granfalooms. I've never heard of this Kurt Vonnegut book. Kurt Vonnegut is most well known for Breakfast of Champions, Slaughterhouse-Five, Cat's Cradle. This is a 1974 edition of that. George Orwell, 1984. So this could go in that like required reading collection. George Orwell, 1984, and Animal Farm are his most well-known works. I have a couple of Star Trek novels. I do pick these up whenever I find them. So these are all the original Star Trek series. So this is Blackfire, Mind Shadow.
One possibility I see is Black Creek Volunteer Fire Department I on McClellan Road in Mechanicsville, about 53 miles to your west. Do you want that one?
No. And then the Klingon Gambit. Oh my goodness, that was weird. All right. I also have Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. And then 2 books that are about science fiction authors or by science fiction authors. So this is Jules Verne, The Man Who Invented the Future by Franz Bourne. So it's just discussing Jules Verne, who I just showed you a book by him. And a really cool thing. And then this is The Human Brain by Isaac Asimov. This is Isaac Asimov, who's a really well-renowned and respected hard science fiction writer because he's also a scientist. And this is his treatise on the human brain. And then I have The Children of Hurin in a hardcover by J.L. Tolkien. the Return of the King book that I showed you, where I only found the last book in good shape. Blades of the Old Empire. This is the first book in the Majat Code by Anna Kashina. And then Midnight Falcon by David Gimmel. And then cookbooks is the last category. I will pick up vintage cookbooks. So Meat Selection and Preparation and 100 Ways to Serve. This is a piece of ephemera. Oh, look, this got mixed in here. This is the Fantastic Mr. Fox by Ronald Dahl. And this is a very vintage copy from 1974. So that was supposed to go over here with those ones. All right, sorry for the angle change. The camera died because this video is so long, but so I had to get the other camera. This is a Pillsbury Bake Off cookbook. This is probably from the 70s. Hi, baby. 1972. Got that one right. And then I buy and sell these cookbooks multiple times on eBay. I pick them up whenever I find it. It is the Whistle Stop Cafe cookbook. This is a more modern edition of that. And then the Virginia Hospitality cookbook by the Junior League of Hampton Roads. I picked this up multiple times as well. They always sell for me. And then the last book to show you is the Good Housekeeping All-American Cookbook. This does have a track record on eBay, so if it doesn't sell on Whatnot, there you go. And again, all of these books will be available for sale first, except for like the first ones I showed you, which I'm keeping or going immediately on eBay. So all the other books will be up on Whatnot, $2 each, doesn't matter if they're softcover or hardcover, and whatever doesn't sell on Whatnot, it'll be Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Pacific. Hopefully Editing Bob has put that over here for you. And hopefully I'll see you there. If not, thank you so much for watching. I will put a link down in the description if you use my link to sign up for Whatnot. If you've never signed up for Whatnot before, you'll get $15 to spend, so that means you can get a nice little stack of books. It doesn't cover shipping, but it is all media mail shipping because it's all books, so shipping will be pretty inexpensive anyway. But hopefully I'll see you tomorrow morning, and if not, thank you again for watching. Bye! Bye!
Hero, hero, I wanna be a hero, hero. Oh, the hero comes, I can hear the drums and a horse is strong.